Hey, everybody. Oh, hey, we're live. Welcome to Bill Has Opinions, where our tagline is, we'd like to take a minute for a second to talk about that. I am Laura Lavoie, and I am joined, of course, by Bill Perkins, who has opinions. Welcome, Bill. What are you up to?
I'm up to about 78 degrees. Feels like maybe I don't know.
Yes, indeed, you do.
I'm walking out of the Purple Onion today because someone took me the extra key, and so I'm sitting on the patio.
Oh, no.
And it's not exactly patio weather today. It's balmy. It's like it feels like it's gonna rain sometime in the next 2 days, but it's not raining today. So therefore, it's just hot and muggy. And I'm probably showing up a little pink, and that's a combination of the fact that I got a little sunburn on Sunday afternoon, and also I am sitting out in the heat. So I'm pink from being overheated, and also pink from being burnt. Combo.
All right. Well, drink that beer, and you'll feel better.
Yeah, that's already feeling better. I've already drank one.
What beer did you bring to the table today?
I brought Oberon by Bell's, from Michigan, and I got this one because it was the best summertime beer that they had at the store 2 doors down. Because I'm locked out of the Purple Onion and can't drink for free.
Oberon is a good beer. The brewery is literally in the town where I went to college. So I did not drink good beer when I was in college, which is really a shame because I could have walked.
But you didn't know yet.
I have here, let's see, where you got? I've got the As Long as There's Water Berliner Weiss from, where is this from? Sweetwater. And it's weighed with the kind of berry that I can't pronounce the name of.
Yeah, I always say acai, but yeah, okay.
Yeah, and also my cat is trying to get in the door, so that's fun.
Hey, I have a question about your Berliner Weiss.
Okay.
I know sometimes Berliner Weisses taste a little more like a Kolsch, and sometimes they taste more like a Gose.
Yes, they do. That's not a question.
It's a statement, and I want to know which one this is.
Actually, I would say somewhere in the middle. I was expecting it to be more sour than it is, but with that berry taste, it tastes less like a Kolsch and more like, I don't know. I'm not really sure. To be honest, I don't love it.
Yeah.
Oh wait, and Matt tells me how to pronounce it. The acai berry. Acai.
Yeah, I'm not going to learn that.
Me neither. Me neither, but apparently that's how we pronounce that. No, to be honest, I don't love it. It's not awful. I've had worse beers, but it's not amazing. So I'll drink it.
Yeah. You paid for it. You might as well.
Exactly. So, welcome everybody to the show. We have hopefully something fun planned for you all today because we are going to be talking about architecture and design. So we have photos and we have things to show you, and it's always fun when we have visual aids.
Show.
So, Bill, tell us, what are your thoughts? What are your opinions on architecture and design?
Firstly, my opinion is we're probably going to lose all 8 viewers today.
I love architecture. It's one of my favorite things.
Same, honestly, because I didn't realize how much I loved it until we actually had some out-of-town guests one time that came to visit us in Asheville, and I took them on a walking tour and realized that I spent the entire 2 hours walking around pointing at architecture and talking about architecture. And at the end of it, my wife was like, you could give walking architecture tours of this town, and like, because you have a lot to say about that, but anyway, and I bring that up because so I've lived a couple places with some good architecture. First, I grew up in a place with lame architecture, and so I didn't really think about it during my formative years. It wasn't until I moved to Chicago for art school that I really started paying it some mind, because Chicago is so important to architecture that there's a style of architecture called Chicago. Actually, they've got two. They've got Old Chicago and New Chicago. And that's really when I started paying attention to design and architecture. Yeah, and I was just overwhelmed. I guess partially because the buildings in Chicago were so tall, right?
Right.
I lived there at the time when the tallest building in the world was there. Now, I mean, then there was like a renewal then, and now I think it's probably like the 20th largest building in the world or some shit. But back then, that was the tallest building in the world, the Willis Tower, aka the Sears Tower. And for the purposes of this show, I'm probably going to call things by their original name and not by whatever company bought them since then. So if I miscall a building, sorry, it's the building that paid for the erection, and that's what I'm going to call it.
All right, I think that's fair. We don't have to confuse it. We don't have to call it like there was a concert venues are always the one that change their names really frequently.
Yeah.
And I grew up with a concert venue called Pine Knob. I mean, that's a great concert venue name, right? And then one day it was just called the DTE Energy Amphitheater. And I'm like, why would I ever call it that? It had a perfectly fine name.
Yeah.
So I would call it whatever it's called.
Yeah.
Fine.
Okay. So that was my introduction to architecture was when I moved to Chicago. And there was a lot of great architecture in Chicago. And then, of course, also, Frank Lloyd Wright built a lot of houses in that area. So his name's going to get dropped a few times here. Also, probably Buckminster Fuller. We're probably going to drop that name a time or two. I don't know.
And if we don't after this, we just did. So
there we go. Yeah.
Good.
Buckminster Fuller, geodesic dome. Look it up.
Also,
the
Sears Tower is the 17th tallest BT Dubs.
I was close. I said 20th, and I figured I had no idea because it's like they build the tallest building like every 6 months nowadays, right? Like nothing is the tallest building for very long. It's like stupid.
Yeah. Well, we do have some fans that are here to talk about buildings. So
awesome. That's great.
We have a couple fans, and I'm going to be bouncing back and forth between images and comments. So if I don't put your comment up right away, it's just because I didn't see it yet. And I will eventually put your comment up. So please do keep commenting. Oh, wait, I got to take that one down. See, now I got to go back into the comments, take that one down.
Okay.
All right. I'm doing the producing thing. I got this down. All right. So, yes.
Chicago, if you don't mind, while we're at that point.
So, yeah. So interesting. A lot of my original foray into architecture also had a Chicago basis because I didn't know. I also grew up in a town that did not have. It was not known for its architecture. It was known for its strip malls, and I didn't realize, even though I was so close to Detroit, which has some amazing buildings, I just wasn't able to appreciate them yet. So I learned over time. But when I went to college, I took a class that was generally considered one of those easy 101 courses that everybody takes, which was called Modern Art and Architecture. And the professor was amazing, even though he was in this huge lecture hall with hundreds and hundreds of students. And he was a huge Frank Lloyd Wright fan, so he spent a lot of time on Frank Lloyd Wright. And I was like, holy crap, this stuff is amazing. So from then, I started studying Frank Lloyd Wright because I really liked it. It was one of the first things that Matt and I had in common when we first started dating. We're like, we both like Frank Lloyd Wright because he also took that class. So then we actually started traveling. We've been all over the country to see Frank Lloyd Wright houses, and then we kind of expanded that to seeing different architecture forms in lots of different places. So we've even gone on self-guided architecture tours in cities around the world. So I love architecture and design.
Yeah. Go ahead and put up a slide since we got these slides we got to get through.
Do we want to do a slide or do we want to do station break first? We can do anything we want because we're in charge.
Yeah, let's do the station break already, I guess. I didn't bring anything to talk about today on that one. So.
All right. Well, I have one thing I want to talk about. Well, you can talk about the Purple Onion because even though they're not open right now,
yeah, the Purple Onion. You're locking me out.
Although it's never open when you're doing the show, so it kind of doesn't matter.
It doesn't really, but.
So I do have one thing I want to mention for Station Break as far as I guess a non-paid for plug of a product. I want to mention StreamYard, which folks who might not realize is the software or the website that we use to make this show. And the reason I want to mention it is because it's really easy to use. It's the whole reason we have a show. I'm now doing other podcasts with it. It's super fun. But a couple weeks ago, we were in the middle of the show, and my apartment had a complete power outage, and everything died. And I honestly thought that it was over. That was it. It was just going to bump us out because I was the host, and there was nothing we could do. But no, this thing, it kept going. Bill was by himself, and all I did was going back in progress, and it was great. So if you need to do live videos on Facebook, YouTube, whatever, definitely check out StreamYard. They are an absolute workhorse, and I very highly recommend them.
Yeah, and is it simulcast on both formats right now, or does one of them? Okay, so we're live on both Facebook and YouTube at the same time, which is great because I know I have friends, and I recently also got off the. We'll talk about that in a second. I recently got off Facebook just because for political reasons and because I needed a break from it because it was just kind of, and I've heard a lot of people say this in the last year, like when you take a month or two off of Facebook, it does wonders for your mental health, and it's honestly helping. But I also quit because Zuckerberg was kind of kowtowing to the current administration, and I was already unhappy and on the fence about leaving Facebook, and then that kind of was the nail in the coffin. But anyway, so I love it that StreamYard allows us to stream to both Facebook and YouTube. So my friends who are already like me and aren't on Facebook now can watch us on YouTube, and that's cool. And also then it archives it on YouTube. YouTube is a better format, honestly, for that reason. I guess can you watch it after on Facebook? Can you go back and watch an archive? Okay. I wasn't sure.
You can, absolutely.
But I do find that
you can watch it either place.
Yeah.
And for someone who's not on Facebook, the easiest way to share our links is to share the YouTube link because it's just a clean link that you can send to somebody. But if you're on Facebook and you're just go ahead and share it through regular Facebook channels by hitting the share button.
And do share it. If you like our podcast, we could stand to have 12, maybe 16 viewers. That'd be awesome.
Really, just a handful more would be great. We love all of you, all three of you watching right now. We love you all, but we could use a few more, so spread the word. But also, it's cool if people watch later. Like, you don't have to watch live. You can watch whenever you want. But it's more fun to watch live because then we talk about your comments. Like this one from Matthew Belitzos from Atlanta, Georgia.
Yes.
That you are sitting, you're sitting on the patio of a historic building right now, aren't you?
It is not a historic patio because the patio was built in the last 10 years or so, I think. But the building itself, yes, the building is a historic building, and they used a unique loophole because it is a historic building and it sits on a scenic highway and it's across the street from a historic railroad track and it's down the road from a historic something or else. I don't know. There was all these like loopholes in the law that allowed them to get a license to sell alcohol back when this was still a dry county. And then they used the same loophole last year to get a full liquor bar in here after the county had previously voted in beer and wine. So that was like now legal all over the county, but full alcohol, like liquor drinks were not legal. But then they used that same stupid loophole to finagle a full liquor bar. And then within 6 months of them getting that done, the entire town, of course, voted it in because that's what they do, because they're like, oh, I guess they already have it. They're already going to do it. Like, everybody might as well be getting the. This is a funny thing, actually. If your town is, but you use a loophole to get alcohol, until your town votes in alcohol, the revenue does not go to your town. So it behooves
That's
them.
actually really interesting.
Yeah, so it behooves them to vote that crap in and get the revenue from it. Otherwise, it's going to the county or to the state or somewhere larger. I guess depending on what the legality of the dryness is, whether it's the town or the county or whatever, it goes up and up and up. So I think at the onset, the state was getting all the money, the county and the town were getting no money, and then so they had to vote it in, and then they could reap the rewards. So there you go, little law lesson. There you go. And I'm not a lawyer. But Matt Bellistos, who asked the question, or is going to be.
Right. Well, almost. Very nearly. So let's move right into the slideshow. And I want to give a disclaimer for everybody watching. I didn't name any of these photos, so I have no idea what they are. And they're completely out of order. So I already warned Bill that I'm just going to put something on the screen. He's going to have to tell me what it is, because I don't necessarily know. I mean, I might know what some of them are. All right, let's start with this one because I accidentally stuck it in at the bottom.
Yeah, this is actually in Chicago. This is on the Chicago River. It's right on the river, and it's called Marina City, or it was called Marina City. I don't know what it's called now. I believe the House of Blues is in the bottom of one of those buildings. And anyway, yeah, this was built. I looked it up earlier. I want to say his name was Goldberg, the architect. It's kind of mildly brutalist, but a little bit more organic than most brutalist work. And I actually hate brutalism, but this guy actually liked curves, and he liked. He used the same materials as brutalism. That's what's brutalist about it. It's obviously all cement, right? But he liked having a little more organic feel to his buildings. Most of them are round or they're at least they've got something weird going on. Actually, the SUNY Medical Center in Buffalo, New York was designed by the same guy, and it's actually a square, but it's like a square sitting on top of it's a large square sitting on a tiny legs or something like that. So it's kind of a funny looking thing. I looked him up today out of curiosity because I was like, I don't know if I'm going to talk about this. I need to know who did it, right? Because I just know I like the building. But anyway, yeah, he did several buildings in Chicago, Illinois. Actually, he trained at Bauhaus and he was friends with Buckminster Fuller, who I mentioned earlier that I was going to name drop. There you go.
And hey, you just did it again. Good job.
There we go. So that's the tie-in. Anyway, it's a cool building. I think it appeared on the cover of a Wilco album, and I was telling Laura before the show I don't really care for Wilco, but I know that this was on the cover of one of their albums that I can't name, although I know it's like Army CB talk for what the fuck or something like that, right?
Oh yeah. Wilco, yeah. But so I like that. So brutalism, because brutalism is one of those. It's not even a you love it or you hate it. It's if it's done well, you love it. And otherwise, you're like, what the hell is that?
Yeah, so much of it looks like a cardboard box made out of cement, right? And that's really what the problem is. Like so I don't know what your school was like, but the campus I went to, not my art school in Chicago, but I haven't mentioned this, but I went to art school for like 2 years, and I transferred to state school in South Carolina. And the University of South Carolina is a combination of buildings that were built pre-Civil War and buildings that were built in the 1970s. And all the ones are that shitty institutional brutalism that looks like some sort of dystopian, it's just a box that looks institutional. I don't know how else to describe it.
I luckily did not go to, or at least I don't recall any of my schools being that. But yeah, that is exactly what I think of when I think of that institution look.
Right. So.
All right. So I got another one. So again, you sent me a bunch of things from a bunch of cities, and I don't know what order they're in. So let's find out.
Awesome. You got them in the right order.
This one. Well, at least so far.
This is I'm sorry, I said Willis Tower, but I should say the Sears Tower. It's the Sears Tower.
Right?
I actually have been to the observation deck of the Sears Tower when I was a youngster. I went up there and looked around, and it is unfortunately it was on a cloudy day, so I couldn't see very far. And it's most of the time a cloudy day in Chicago. Oh, look at that! We've got a new subscriber. Kudos to you. That's the name of the album. Thank you, Albert. I was actually going to mention Albert when I was talking about brutalism because Albert took me on a walking tour. Albert Short took me on a walking tour of Roosevelt Island in New York City one time. And I don't know if you saw the horror movie Dark Water, but it was filmed on Roosevelt Island. Yes, exactly. And
right? Yeah, no, Albert even mentioned that. Yes, yes.
Yes, brutalism. It was all brutalist nonsense. So anyway.
And I also wanted to mention that we have an 11th YouTube subscriber, but he happens to be my brother-in-law, so I don't know what that counts for.
I don't care Jim. How they're related to us as long as we get them. But when I was a youngster and I went to visit the Willis Tower or the Sears Tower, it was awesome. I had never seen anything. I mean, obviously, like I said, at the time, it was the tallest building in the world. But I grew up in rural South Carolina. The tallest building near me was probably 11, 12 stories, maybe. It was the county building or something, you know, and it was a brutalist nightmare. This building is actually in the new I want to say. I looked it up today, and I think that's what it was called. And these guys, and I should have looked up who the architect was. But this idea of the tiered skyscraper, this was what allowed it to be this tall. It was by not making a single structure go straight up, they were able to do this. And I think since then they must have overcome that. I feel like a lot of the newer structures are actually not tiered anymore. Like the three that came after this one were, but then they kind of abandoned that style. Although some of them, instead of being tiered, are more like spires, like they kind of like taper up as they go. So maybe they're still sort of using that same sort of idea, really. You know, it's kind of like the what's the one in San Francisco? The one that's a big pointy thing.
The Transamerica building.
Yeah, that one. Yeah.
Transamerica building.
It's pointy, but in a different way.
Someone's going to correct me.
This is a boxy pointy, but they're all sort of pointy in their way, right? Like they taper inward as they go. Now, later on, we're going to talk about a building that doesn't do that. So, yeah, but anyway, there we go, Transamerica. Everybody knows that one.
I was, in fact, correct. But so I just want to point that out. I was right. Oops, I always forget to put that away. Let's put that away right there. All right.
Also, the John Hancock.
So we got some more.
Picture of it also looks pretty.
The John Hancock building has a special place in my heart because I once, didn't run away to Chicago, but I went to Chicago with my 2 college roommates and didn't tell anybody that I was going, like my mother, who wouldn't have approved. And for some reason, the only place we actually it was the middle of winter. And, you know, I grew up in Michigan, so I know brutal winters, but it was really bad and it was awful. And we were going to visit guys that we knew from an online game, which probably is not the thing you want 3 college students to go do, but we did anyway. Luckily, we all survived. They went to one of the colleges there, so we went to visit them, and luckily they did not kill us. But we went to the John Hancock building, and I don't know why I remember that, but I do. And I was trying, because there's not a big time in my life where I wasn't dating Matt, but this was actually before I was dating Matt. And I was interested in one of the guys in the game. And after that trip to Chicago, I was no longer interested in one of the guys in the game. So that's what happens.
Wait,
that's not really the story.
Sorry. I want to pause for a moment on the architecture and talk for a moment about historical perspective and how Gen X this show is. And I'm going to mention that this game was probably a mud, wasn't it?
It really was. It was a mud, absolutely. That is 100% what it was. So yeah, I didn't see the guy. I never even heard the guy. It was literally just texting, or you know, the equivalent of long form texting at each other. So yeah, luckily that did not work out.
I just
and I'm glad for it because my life is much better than it would have been if I had voted. All right, I got to go to another photo here. Again, I don't know what order these are in, so here's a random photo.
All right, so this is.
Tell us about this one, Bill.
This is the interior of the Hearst Tower in Charlotte, North Carolina, where I've also lived. And I don't think that's the name of the building anymore, but as I said earlier, I'm going to call them by the name of the people who built them, who erected them, haha. So the thing I like about this, and eventually, I don't know what order the slides are in, so eventually we'll see the outside of the Hearst Tower, but the interior is more impressive to me. I just love the attention to detail here. It's a neo-Art Deco style, and I love Art Deco, and it's one of the things that's great about living in Asheville is, like, Asheville, I think, is the second largest collection of standing Art Deco buildings in the country. The first is somewhere in South Beach, Miami, or something like that. And
I believe that is correct, yes.
The brief aside on that is the reason that Asheville has so many Art Deco buildings is because the market crashed and Asheville actually never recovered financially until the 1980s. And by then we realized the historic value of those buildings, whereas other towns where they recovered quicker would just tear them down because what the fuck, who cares, right? Like, I just need this land, I'm going to build something else. But then, you know, by the time Asheville recovered financially, they were like, it had been long enough for the people to appreciate the beauty of Art Deco and to leave it alone and say, hey, we're gonna preserve these buildings. Whereas in Charlotte, there's no historic building in Charlotte. All there is new building. However, they have adopted a very strong liking to Neo Art Deco and Neo Art Nouveau. They use a lot of that stuff, as we'll see in some of these slides, and God knows what order. But this is one of the things I wanted to point out. Just this attention to detail, all that brass work, all that crazy fan thing up there on the ceiling. This is just in one of the lobbies of the Hearst building. And every time I walked through there when I used to live in Charlotte and work at one of the banks there that I like to call big Capital Bank NA.
Right, exactly.
Anyway, when I would walk through there, I would always go, "Wow, this is a beautiful building. They really spared no expense." So I always like this.
Yeah, I absolutely love Art Deco, and I've got a little bit more about Art Deco in Asheville, but I'll save it. We have one Asheville slide, so I'll save it for that. But in this kind of, using that throwback to Art Deco to build a new building. I mean, I like to see new architecture too, but yeah, why not go back to something like this? Because this is super classy and it's really cool. Yeah. All right, here's another picture.
Okay, so
that may not be that big.
That's the same building, but that's the outside of it. And if you'll notice, this is a unique twist on, because we earlier looked at the Sears Tower, which, as you notice, tapers upward. This one does the opposite. This one's actually wider at the top than it is at the bottom. And I don't know what manner of mechanism they finagled to pull that off, but it is actually, it's not loads wider at the top than it is at the bottom, but it is in fact. And it's got, as you can see from the look of it, it's got kind of a Neo Art Deco thing. And you know what? I'm kicking myself now because I didn't send you a slide of the Chrysler building, but this one actually kind of has some details up at the top that kind of allude to the Chrysler building a little bit. I feel like, which is my favorite building in New York City, by the way.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah, that it was inspired by. Yes. I do like the building. Yeah, I love traveling for architecture. Like, that's actually one of my favorite things to do when we travel. But that was from the vacation show, which we did 2 weeks ago. So we don't need to go back to that. So yeah, here's another interesting building. There are conglomeration of buildings.
So the one we just talked about is in the background of this slide, as you can see. The very, very tall one beside it is that's the Bank of America building, which is also a throwback Art Deco building. And then the one I really love in this picture actually is in the foreground, the one with the green rotunda on top there.
Yeah.
It's not as tall, so it's not as grandiose, but it's got some great details on it that I just love. Like I said, details are one of those things that gets me sometimes. It's got kind of it's sort of a mix of Art Deco and futurism a little bit. And I've got a bigger blow up of this building in a minute. I don't know where in the series of slides this is, but that's 120.
Maybe. Oh yeah, I do have it. Yeah, I do have it. Okay. I was like, what if I missed it? But I didn't. I've got it. Actually, let's go ahead and go to it since we're come here.
Okay. So
come here.
It was up for a second. I saw it. Anyway.
There we go. There we go. Yeah.
Is 121 Trade Street.
It's nice when it's full screen. Everybody can see the whole thing.
Yeah, this I have to give credit. This photo was from the Charlotte Observer. I just happened to find a nice photo. But you see those details up about almost to the top? There's like these little like planter looking, I don't know what they are. They're like these little hemisphere ball things up at the top. It always reminded me of
Yeah. I wish I had a pointer. Those are really cool.
Yeah. It always reminded me of Tim Burton's Gotham City kind of. You know, it had that sort of futurist sort of design. That's why I love this building. I would always look up at it and I'd be like, wow, that's really cool. Like, you know, they put these things on there. And shoot, I looked up the architecture firm involved in this one. They're out of New York City and they have done buildings all over the world. They've done loads of stuff in Hong Kong and Shanghai. But I can't remember. It was something, I remember there was a Coke in there. KOCH. I can't remember who else. It was like a big firm name. But 121 Trade Street is the name of this building. It's in Charlotte, North Carolina. If you look that up, it'll tell you who the architecture firm was. I just thought it was awesome. I love like I said, it's the details there. It's that green rotunda and those little hemisphere planter or whatever the heck they are, things around the top that just get me. I don't know.
Yeah, that's a super cool building. Yeah, next time in Charlotte, I'm gonna go check that out for sure. All right, and then a lot of the other ones I uploaded. So if you had more than, sorry, I missed them. But
that's all I sent.
Might have been.
I should have sent.
Good. I didn't miss them. Yay. Well, we can, like we do with other topics, we can do this again sometime.
Sure. We'll
so speaking of Asheville,
yeah.
I wanted to mention, so we have, it's not the best picture, but we have, this is the city building and the county building in downtown Asheville. So the city of Asheville and Buncombe County. And it's a really cool story with these two buildings. And to your point, Bill, that, you know, our Art Deco lasted because it wasn't until the 80s, you know, that it really recovered. And one of the reasons we have these buildings or any of the Art Deco buildings downtown is in the 80s, developers wanted to raise all of downtown and build a mall. And one guy started a campaign to save all the buildings and they did not raise it and build a mall. So we have all these amazing buildings.
Yeah, that's great. Oh yeah, I seem to recall that. I think Jimmy, my friend James McKenzie, who does a walking tour. His tour is not about architecture. His tour is about literature. But he mentions the guy because I think the guy was a writer who led the campaign to save downtown.
Yes.
Anyway, I remember that from his walking tour. If you're, hey, there's a thing I should have shouted out. Let's do that next week.
All right, I will write it down because yes, we'll spoiler for next week. We're going to talk about Asheville Lit Tours. So if you want to look it up now, but we'll actually talk about it in depth next week. But I want to mention about these two buildings. What's really interesting about these is you see the super Art Deco, cool looking one that is our city building. And when that was proposed and built, both buildings were supposed to be built by the same architect, and they were both supposed to be these Art Deco buildings. But after the Art Deco city building was built, the county said, oh no, we don't like that. And they completely scrapped the plans and they built this super traditional thing, which is really cool. It's a beautiful building, but it's
a little boxy. I will say this, it's more beautiful on the inside. The inside lobby of the county building will blow you away. The crown molding is gilt crown molding. It's like 16 colors. I don't know. It's gorgeous on the inside, The outside is kind of this neo-federalist kind of thing that I don't love.
Yeah.
But
yeah, me neither. But I just love that it gives us the story of our town, because we've always had this kind of, like, since the 30s, this sort of fight between super liberal Asheville and super conservative Buncombe County, and those buildings just personify that, and or buildingify that. They symbolize that. I think it's super cool.
I'm gonna steal a joke from the Zoom comedy tour, which is a and their joke is, we've got this gorgeous Art Deco building. We've also got, because we like to reduce, reuse, and recycle, we've also got the box that it came in.
Exactly. But here's a fun fact: the Memphis Belle flew between those two buildings to sell war bonds. So that's kind of cool.
There's actually a historical placard between those buildings that says that.
Yes. There is. All right, let me go back to the photos here. All right. Okay, and so that was just the Asheville one that I shared. And then this is one that both Bill and I have a lot of experience with. And I only have the inside of the building because, frankly, the outside of the building doesn't look like much. It does, I mean, depending on what angle you're looking at it, but the inside is what's the most amazing. So this is the Atlanta Marriott Marquis, downtown Atlanta, where DragonCon is held, and we go to every year. And this is the inside atrium of it, which was, the building was designed by John Portman, who did tons of buildings all over the country, including one in Detroit that I could have showed you, but I did not, which I will show some Detroit buildings a little bit later. But, so this is, yeah, it's just amazing. And here's another view of the atrium. Like, it is so cool. And I mean, it's huge. Yeah, I don't even know how to describe this, but it appears in a bunch of movies. It was in the Hunger Games and Spider-Man Homecoming. It's just such a cool building.
Yeah, it's got a really neat feel. And it looks like you're inside the like ribs of a large animal or something, like when you're inside of it. It's really crazy, but it's a neat building. And you don't have a picture of the exterior, do you? Because the building's actually ones that tapers. It's wide at the bottom, and then it kind of like slopes up as it goes.
Yeah, I didn't. I was going to, and then I failed to get that photo. But the interior is more cool.
Yeah, the interior is more impressive than the exterior, but it's a cool building all around. It's a really neat building.
It really is. And if you like architecture and you haven't heard John Portman's name, definitely check him out, because he did some amazing stuff.
And what street is this building on, by the way?
What is it?
What street is this building on?
Peachtree, I believe.
Okay. But there's
not.
It's not on John
Portman. No, it's on Portman. Isn't it on John Portman? I don't know. They're all Peachtree to me.
Well, John Portman Street runs through that area.
Yes, there is John Portman. And but yeah, I live in Atlanta right now, and it's all just Peachtree to me. So yeah. I have no clue what any streets are. Just follow Peachtree, you'll get somewhere. I don't know. I do have for you one building from Detroit that is, I did not appreciate this building enough when I was a kid. This was actually, I did not realize it was more than just a theater, because that's what I did. Like, I went to see my very first Broadway show there, or live touring musical there, and I didn't realize it was more than just a theater, like a Fox Theater. But this is the Fisher Building.
Okay.
And there's a theater in there, but there's also a bunch of other shit in there.
And this is Fisher, like Body by Fisher.
It's like Fisher, like I'm going to fish something, like Carrie Fisher.
No, I know.
I don't think there's.
There used to be a company in that area that did the body work for GM.
I'm sure that's what it is.
GM cars would say "Body by Fisher" on the bottom of the door sill.
Yeah, I don't know enough of the history, and I should, but having grown up in Detroit, but I guarantee you that's what it is, and somebody can correct me if that's not true. But what I really wanted to show you was the interior. I mean, it is just a gorgeous building.
I mean, a Byzantine sort of thing there, isn't it?
Yeah, and when you I didn't get a picture of the actual theater, but it is. Oh, it's just exceptional. It's a great place.
Beautiful.
It's a great place to do so. Yeah, that's super cool.
Stuff. And you know what? That's one of the things in this talk where I probably didn't get enough slides of interiors. I got that one, but I will say most of the buildings in Charlotte that might be okay looking from the outside, but on the inside, oh my God, they've got some great mural work and mosaic tiles and things like that just really set them off. Like I said, attention to detail. That's really what gets me. Sometimes it doesn't have to be the building itself. It just has to be like it's got this detail. Love it. You know, like the S&W building in Asheville, which is not a spectacular looking building, but it's got these cobalt blue or a lapis lazuli, I don't know what color you call it, but these blue tiles on the outside that are just gorgeous, you know?
Absolutely. No, that's one of my favorite buildings too, and I didn't get a picture of it. Fan Jay Hicks from Detroit tells us that the Marriott Marquis in Atlanta is, in fact, it's on Peachtree Center, which I'm sure is bisected by Peachtree and some other peach trees.
Yeah, Peachtree Terrace, Peachtree Drive, I believe, are the other intersecting.
They all are. All right, we've got just a few more pictures, and these ones, so a lot of the ones we showed you guys already were from places where we have lived. But I could not let an architecture and design show go by without sharing a few of my favorite architects, Frank Lloyd Wright. So we need to name drop that. But I'm a huge fan, and I've traveled all over the country to see Frank Lloyd Wright buildings. So I only picked 3. You're welcome. I could have picked like 30, but I didn't. We could do an entire show of just Frank Lloyd Wright, but we're not going to. All right, so I'm going to start with his estate in Spring Green, Wisconsin, which is Taliesin. If you ever have a chance to go on a tour, this was actually one of our very first vacations, was going to visit this. So it was like 20 years ago that we went to this, which makes me feel old and very Gen X. But it's just an amazing building, and it has an incredible history. Like, there were fires and murders and all sorts of crazy things that happened in here. So it's worth looking into the history of this building because it's super, super cool. Then Mr. Wright moved his estate, or built another estate out in Arizona, which we have also visited.
It's probably after the murder.
Well, yeah, I believe it, yes, exactly. But Taliesin West, and both of these buildings are just sprawling estates. Like, there's no way I could have gotten the whole thing in. Taliesin West is absolutely stunningly gorgeous. And one of the things I love about Frank Lloyd Wright is that he builds to fit in with the environment. So the Spring Green one is so different from the Arizona one because he built it to match the environment, which I think is super cool.
Yeah. Which is one of those things that I like about, like, I would say new modern architecture, like architecture in our current day. When an architect takes into consideration the surroundings, like if you're going to build a new building in Asheville, let's say, for argument, make it a neo Art Deco, because that way it'll fit in instead of looking like a damn eyesore. You know,
right.
Make it look like it belongs.
I would argue that one of the newest buildings, which thankfully destroyed one of the biggest eyesores in all of Asheville, a building called the BB&T building, which was known as the ugliest building in North Carolina. They did, like, not even just Asheville, all of North Carolina. They did tear that down and built kind of a cool neo Art Deco building. The problem is it's sort of a symbol of capitalism right now, so a lot of people are still against it, but it's actually a much better building than we had before. It definitely was an improvement, but it's got other issues that are unrelated to the actual architecture.
You can't win them all.
We cannot. So we just have 2 more for you, because I couldn't show Frank Lloyd Wright without showing kind of his masterpiece, his magnum opus, Fallingwater, which is in Pennsylvania. And so this was designed, and it's all these cantilevers, and it's super, super cool. But Frank Lloyd Wright had a lot of hubris, and he said, this will be great, this will be fine. And it has been steadily falling down ever since it was built.
I was going to ask you a follow-up question because I have a neighbor who has a house that's over a creek like that, and she has crazy foundation problems and crazy mildew problems because it's not a good idea to build over a creek.
Right? When you go visit now, and I will tell you, when we went to visit this, it was 19 years ago because we visited the same time we went and picked up our previous cat. So she would have been 19 this year. So it was 19 years ago that we went to this. So again, I feel old, but it is a beautiful building, but there are all kinds of like engineering solutions to hold it up. Somebody once said something to me, and I think and I love Frank Lloyd Wright. I am a huge fan, but he had faults. He had a lot of faults. And someone once said to me, Frank Lloyd Wright wasn't an unadulterated genius. He was actually an adulterated genius. And I think that's absolutely true. Like, the man had a lot of faults and a lot of hubris, but I mean, he built some amazing things that are gorgeous to look at.
Sure. Yeah.
I'm okay with it. The world is a better place having had Frank Lloyd Wright in it, even if he was kind of an asshole. So.
Okay. I'm just saying, there was a funny story. There was a Frank Lloyd Wright house for sale recently at a reasonable price, I want to say, but it had a caveat, and it was that this house comes with loads of problems, and you're going to have to spend lots of, like, 3 times the money it costs to buy this place to keep it up, because he had some ideas that don't really mesh with like function. Like, so this is the thing we talked about in art school, was like, you've got form and function, right? Mm-hmm. And form is one thing, but if it doesn't function, it just doesn't work, right? And so I guess there's a little bit of that, is what you're saying. And Frank Lloyd Wright's work is a lot of form and a little less function.
A lot of that. Although for me, I like it. So, he designed things like where you would have really low spaces until you walked into a, really wide open space. And honestly, I am not a tall person. Matt is not a tall person. We could live very comfortably in a Frank Lloyd Wright house. So if anybody has one that they would like to give us, we would be happy to take it off your hands, probably for free. Just saying. I'm not going to buy it. If I could just live in one. All right, one more picture that I want to share is a few years ago we were in Brussels, Belgium, and because I like to look at architecture when we travel, I really, really wanted to check out some Art Nouveau. I happen to be more loyal to Art Deco, but I can't say I hate Art Nouveau because it is absolutely stunning.
They're cousins,
Yeah, and this is just a ridiculously gorgeous building. So I just wanted to show this because we just went on a walk. We just went for a walk around where I looked on a map where the Art Deco houses were, and we just went and looked at them.
Okay.
It was really cool. So I didn't want to let the slideshow go without showing an Art Deco or Art Nouveau building. So there's one.
There you go.
All right. So before we go into our closing ceremonies, I have one question for you. And this is something I heard on a TV show years ago. It's sort of a philosophical question. Would you rather live in an ugly building with a view of a beautiful building, or live in a beautiful building with a view of an ugly building?
I guess I'd rather look at the beautiful building, honestly, because, I mean, as long as it's functional, like we were just talking about form and function, if the building is got good bones and I can live in it and I get a view, that seems fine to me. Can I go off on a tangent here for a second?
For a second? Or can I take a second for a minute? Can I take a minute for a second?
There was a couple of things I wanted to cover while we were on this whole thing. And so this is going to be my, because you didn't bring it up, I'm going to do my quick, here's my rapid fire. I want to shoot down a couple things. Some architecture styles I like and hate. I love shed roofs. they're probably going to look dated in a while. I don't know. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I feel like in some regard they're going to look dated, but I like them because they've got kind of a Frank Lloyd Wright kind of a mid-century modern. I don't know. Like, they've got this sort of like, they've definitely got a quirky style to them, but I don't know. I love them. The house we bought last year has got a shed roof, and I love it. I love that architecture style, but I do feel like the stuff that's being built in the late 20 teens is going to look very late 20 teens in another 10, 15 years. You know what I mean? Like all the condos, like the condo you're living in now in Asheville,
Sure.
Atlanta rather. All the condos that are being built, they've got kind of this like thing going, you know, where they use like corrugated metal, and they use like the steel cable railing,
Right.
and kind of like those material uses, and just I don't know. There's something like I love that. Actually, I like the style right now, but I kind of wonder how it's going to hold up. Or is it going to look as dated? As say like 1960s, 70s ranch houses look to us. Holy shit! The year they're from, like 1920s craftsman houses look awesome, right? Like those held up. So
Those
I don't
are timeless, absolutely timeless.
know. Is there an architecture like? So that's the thing you don't know at the onset is like. I like an architecture style, but is it going to stand the test of time? Is it going to be one of those things where 20, 30 years from now, we know what time period it was made in, but we don't care because we think that's beautiful? Or are we going to go, and it looks so dated, you know?
Right, and I think there's some of both. Like, you know, our house in Asheville that we will be moving back into in a year is a 1948 bungalow, and I think it is the most adorable house in the world, and
Yeah,
I wouldn't trade it for anything. Which I would say, so my answer to the question would be I would want to live in a beautiful building because I think where you live affects how you think, and I would want to be surrounded by a beautiful building.
I see. Well, so, and the reason I approached the question the way I approached it because, A, I like my house that I live in, but one of the reasons I like my house is because my house is surrounded by woods, and I like the view. So that was my feeling, you know.
Well, there's no right answer. It's literally a no right answer question.
Yeah, but I've lived in a horrible building too. You know, when we lived in Woodfin, we lived in a modular home that's basically like one step up from being a double wide, and it was not a pretty house, and but it had a good view. You know, it was in a nice little like kind of not quite the valley, but like on the slope of a valley. So you got like I don't know. It was okay.
I could that as I
at the end of the day, a house is a place to keep your stuff and sleep. So who cares, really? You know, I mean,
I completely disagree. I think the house that you live in is super important. But I've been working as an advocate for housing and things like that for many years, so I think it's super important. And I want to live in a beautiful building that I love.
I'm also an extrovert who likes to get out, so I don't stay home enough to give a shit what my house is.
It's like, whatever. It's where I put my stuff. All right. So I think we've had a very successful conversation on architecture, and please continue to comment and share and like. But before we get to all of that, I actually have a mailbag. I have a real mailbag for us.
We've got a real question today.
I have a real question, so allow me to read it.
Okay.
It is the subject was emails, and I believe it's referencing your things that are extra from a few weeks ago about thank you emails.
Yeah.
Right. If someone doesn't send you a thank you email, how do you know if they got it? Then you've added more work when you have to follow up a week later.
Okay, that's a fair point. I guess I do understand the need for acknowledgement. You know, because I have actually had to send emails following up with people because I never heard anything back, and I don't know if they got my email. So yeah, point taken. Okay. So when someone says thank you, it's a nice way of saying, hey, I got your email, and I appreciate that.
Exactly.
You know,
at least you know what happened.
That being said, I don't not send thank you emails. I totally send them. I just, like I said, my workflow is usually around what's in my inbox. And so when a thank you email comes in, it just is like one more bing, here's a thing to do, here's a thing to look at. And then I open it up and I'm like, it just says thank you. Christ, I don't need that. You know?
I don't need that. Although I will tell you, a thank you email doesn't necessarily mean someone read the thing you send them, because I had a client recently that sent me a thank you email and I thought it was put to bed, and then I got an email 2 days later that said, did you do blah, blah, blah? And I'm like, yes, and you thanked me for it.
Oh, so counterpoint, it doesn't mean anything.
Right, so you still have to check, you still have to respond either way. So then you start going on a loop of thank you for thank you. So
thank you for thanking me.
Right.
I really
thank
appreciate
you for thanking me. All right, and you sent me a visual aid for this week's things that are extra.
I did.
So, you did. So I'm going to put that up on the screen, and you're going to tell us why it's extra, I assume. So here we go.
Here, my thing is this week. I'm mad because neo-Nazis are taking over Hawaiian shirts. Apparently, around the country, there's these Boogaloo boys, I've heard, that are wearing Hawaiian shirts, but they're also strapped to the nines with guns and nonsense. And so the way I figure it, Boogaloo boys, first off, sounds dumb. Boogaloo boys is either the backup band for a Frankie Avalon movie, right? Or they remind me of, you remember Kimmy Schmidt when they had the Banana Boys, who was the like a gang in her neighborhood that wore yellow, and it was because it was like the last color that wasn't taken. So it kind of reminds me of that. Like it's stupid. You sound stupid as shit. If you're a Boogaloo boy out there, you're listening. I don't know you're not, but I hope this gets to you. I hope somebody forwards it to you. If you're a Boogaloo boy, first off, that sounds dumb. Okay. Secondly, this is what you look like. You look like a G.I. Joe cosplayer with your guns. And that's all I want to say. You're taking away. First, hey, I want to mention this. You know, Polynesians are brown, right? You're wearing something from a different culture that's not yours. You don't like brown people. Fuck off with it. Okay? Like, go get yourself
100%.
Find yourself an Aryan shirt. I don't know what that is. Fucking look it up. Probably a leather tunic. You want to wear a tiny mustache? You want to wear leather tunics? I don't give a goddamn. That's fine. You know what? Let the Ren Fair folks get mad about that. I don't care. Hawaiian shirts piss me off, though.
I totally am with you. And as you know, one of my favorite current things is tiki. So I enjoy a good Hawaiian shirt or a dress or drinking cocktails made with tiki in mind. And so this is a topic going around the tiki boards, as you might imagine. And the basic understanding is wear your Hawaiian shirts as long as you're not strapped to the nines with, lots and lots of guns. You're probably fine.
People still understand that you're not a racist.
Right, in general. But I agree with you. It's bullshit. It's complete bullshit. Like, at least leave something. Like, you don't need a Hawaiian shirt.
You guys already ruined Nordic runes for me. Don't ruin another damn thing, please.
All right. I'm totally with you. Okay, we literally have a minute to do our engineering notes. So excellent. Good job.
Yeah, awesome. I got through 4 Oberons over this course of this show. So
wow. Yes. Good luck.
So, Bill Has Opinions is engineered and produced by Laura Lavoie. The opinions are those of Bill, well, the ones that come out of his mouth anyway. I guess the ones that Laura says are hers, and the ones that we both nod in agreement on and we share, I suppose. Look for us on YouTube and on Facebook every week at 6 p.m. If you're on YouTube, be sure to like and subscribe and leave hate letter. If you Boogaloo boys are watching, you be sure to call me a faggot down below, please. If you're on Facebook, I guess you can comment on there too. I don't know. I don't know how Facebook works anymore. I'm off of it.
Comment wherever you are, and yeah, you can hate us, you can love us.
Ask us questions. Say bad things. I don't give a crap. Any response is good response as far as I'm concerned. So there we go.
All right. Well, thank you everybody once again for joining us for Bill Has Opinions, and we will be back in 1 week at 6 p.m. on Tuesday. So see y'all later. Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.